The reserve list has been the standard for collecting Magic the Gathering for the past 30 years. But now what? Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. I hope you're having yourself a fantastic day. Happy, it's the first official day of winter, so happy winter. We've got snow here. I'm visiting some family in Ohio this week, so hopefully you're doing yourself well and you're having yourself a great day. Today, I want to talk about the reserve list, but before we get there, I want to plug on Friday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, I think 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be streaming a holiday Commander game. I'm playing Elves. We've got a bunch of different Christmas themed commanders for you guys to enjoy some just fun content, streaming some Commander sets. 9 p.m. on Friday right here on the channel. I'll leave a link in the comment section below. As you're leaving a comment about the video, you can check that link and hit notify me. So the reserve list has been a hot button topic for the last 30 years, all the way back to 1996. So I guess not technically 30 years, but 28, 29 years, all the way back to 1996. It's been a hot button topic. And I hope you will consider listening through this entire kind of conversation, because while I am a collector, I do think I provide a little different of a view for the reserve list and a different idea that Magic could get to. But the reserve list has been this hot button topic since 1996. In 2002, they actually removed some cards from the reserve list, some commons and uncommons, because the community basically said that they wanted that. And then in 2010, they revised it again, and they took away the premium, you could have a premium foil Gaia's Cradle, but you couldn't have a non-foil version, and they added that they can no longer do the premium foil version. So, but now in 2022, we just had Magic the Gathering's 30th anniversary product, where they have reprinted the entire beta set, the entire limited set, multiple cards on reserve list, tons of Power 9, everything, with a different back. They didn't call it a proxy set, but that's what the community has basically said that it is. So we have reserved list reprints. Magic the Gathering is printing reserved list cards, albeit with a different back, and it's been a hot button topic again. And there's basically two kind of sides of this conversation. The first side of the conversation is that Magic broke the reserve list. People are angry and they're upset, and they're basically like, screw collecting Magic. I'm not investing in any reserve list cards. You're seeing the market on especially like revised duels start dropping down. You've heard the community start talking more and more about proxying all of their cards, not even just reserve list stuff, but basically saying we're going to proxy a bunch of stuff. And there's been a lot of frustration on that front. The second perspective, though, of this Magic 30th product is that Wizards of the Coast is simply greedy. They took the reserve list and they printed cards as proxies at values higher, $1,000 for 4 packs, at values higher than the current market price of the reserve list cards on the secondary market. The real cards are less expensive, technically, in the pack-to-pack and the way you break it out, than these ones that they are printing in the proxies, the Magic 30 product. So essentially that take says Magic the Gathering is greedy, but it makes the reserve list even more valuable, because basically what they're saying is if Magic ever does break the reserve list, they're going to print it at such a high price that it's not even going to matter for the cards that are already printed. Personally, I take the camp where I believe that reserve list reprints won't actually have a long-term effect on Magic the Gathering's reserve list cards if you take a look at the long-term window. The value of the original prints, in my opinion, will always remain very high, and in my opinion will always kind of continue over a long enough trend to move up. The best scenario for this, the best example for this, it doesn't come from trading card games, but in my opinion it comes from comics. If you take a look at like Action Comics #1, I believe that's like Superman's like big thing. Anyway, that gets reprinted all the time, but the old ones still hold a ton of value. If you want to pick up and physically read a copy, you can buy it for like $35 on Amazon. But if you want to collect and invest and have this kind of special piece that won't ever be recreated, you can do that, and you can go down that rabbit hole of Figuring out how expensive that is, I have no clue, but you can go down that rabbit hole and they can't remake that, and it doesn't matter if they reprint it. And I kind of believe that the same is true for Magic the Gathering cards, that those really iconic, the Black Lotus, the Power 9, it doesn't matter what happens in 2023, because what mattered was in 1994, and that's the cards that matter. And some even would say, and I would be hard pressed to find a really great argument against this, that this model where you are reprinting reserveless cards would actually increase the value of the old cards, because you are allowing more and more people to see and hold and feel the power of those reserveless cards. And because they see, hold, and feel the power, they want to then get involved in investing in the future. They can play with the cards and have fun, and then maybe they say, man, you know what would be really cool is if I could actually have a beta Black Lotus or a unlimited Black Lotus if they get the money down the road in their life. And so then it creates this kind of connection to the product that I don't have. I wasn't around when beta was out. I wasn't around with Unlimited. I didn't get to open those packs. So for me, even I love Magic. So obviously for the last 10 years, I've gotten to know those cards, and I would love to own them. I don't, but I would love to own them. But if I got to actually play with them, I would really feel a special connection to those, and I'd be way more adept to spending that kind of money on those cards. So that's kind of where I land on the reserve list conversation. But even though I'm on that team, I do find a lot of value, and this is where I want to take this conversation. I do find a lot of value in the reserve list from a standard that Wizards of the Coast is saying that we believe in collectibles. If you take out Magic 30th, if you go back to 1996 when they created the reserve list, their stance on creating the reserve list was essentially that they wanted Magic the Gathering to be a collectible card game. They didn't want this to be a card game where you could go to buy a box and it has every single card ever printed in it. It's not a board game. It is a collectible card game. It is a trading card game. That is an element that was important to Magic the Gathering. And I think that now, as we approach 2023 into this new age of Magic the Gathering, 30 years and hopefully another 30 years of just highly collectible, highly playable, really fun game. I know we've had some bumpiness over the last year and a half, whatever, but I hope that the next 30 years of Magic the Gathering can be the same. And I think that Wizards of the Coast needs to double down on a statement that is, we value collectability and we value the nature of a collectible card game. Now, I'm not saying that they double down on the reserve list. I'm not saying that they add cards to the reserve list. I'm not saying that they do. I'm saying that they double down on the idea and promise of creating a collectible card game for the future. So what does that look like? I think that they should come out and essentially say something of lines of like a PR statement where they say this is how Hasbro views collectability moving forward in Magic the Gathering. Some examples, some ideas, not that this would be the exact thing that they would say, but reserve list art or border only, and that they are going to expand the reserve list and include a bunch of other cards that will never be reprinted with this border and this art. They can reprint, maybe they say we're going to reprint the Black Lotus and Gaia's Cradle in a newer, flashier art variant that is different than the original one. But they say that the reserve list artwork and the border and that kind of nostalgic feel of the card will not change or will not ever be reprinted again. This would work really well, in my opinion, for things like 7th edition foils. People who have invested and collected those things, to be able to say this will never be reprinted in a foil version with that old border. I think that would go a long way. You can keep reprinting the cards for those who want to play and just want the cheapest version of the cards. They have that option, but you give collectors an attitude of excitement and value to collecting. Now, I think this even goes to, I'm terrified, sealed product wise, I am terrified that Magic the Gathering is going to actually reprint a full set and sell it to us. I imagine if they did something like the Dark, where they just took the Dark and they reprinted the full set, but they said, we're doing it this time because we're going to include foils. I would love for them to come out and say something like sealed product. Once a set becomes 3 years old, we will not be reprinting that set in its entirety. Things like Dominaria Remastered are interesting and cool because they take cards and they create a different experience. But from a collectible standpoint, if you like, sealed product, that terrible thought of what if they reprint something that's been in print in the past and they just kind of jump up and start printing it again. I would love for Wizards to double down on some sort of statement that adds collectability to the game. And in doing so, in doubling down on a statement that tells us exactly how they view collectability moving forward, we can kind of understand what is collectible in their eyes again, and we can figure out the value of things. I think this opens up the idea to reprinting reserve list cards and creating a different standard for what collectability looks like, as long as we as a community, again, know what that standard is, and they double down on it, and they maybe even put out some sort of legal, representation of that. Maybe it's the legal team saying this is what we promise to do. If we know anything from Magic 30, we know Wizards will set up greed, and that they are all about money, and that they are all about getting as much money out of the community as possible. This would give some form of promise to the community that we respect the kind of collectible nature of the game. So, long story short, Magic needs a combination of playability and collectability. I am all for the idea that cards at a basic level for play are cheaper, but if you get rid of collectible nature all in all you have is a board game, and board games don't have the specialness of being able to create an ecosystem and an economy based around the game. One of the beautiful things of Magic the Gathering is you can buy cards in this hobby, and you can know that in 6 months, a year, 3 years down the road, you can use those cards to continue to fund your hobby. You can use those cards to continue to get different things, or be able to do a draft, or that kind of nature of the game. One of the best parts about this hobby is the idea that cards keep their value, and that that your investment in it isn't gone after 3 games that you play or whatever you do with it. So a PR statement to give some belief in the product for the long term would do a lot. So let me know what you think in the comment section below about the reserve list. What do you think Magic 30th really means for the reserve list cards? What are you doing? Are you buying reserve list cards in this market dip, or are you selling and avoiding that kind of thing of fear that Magic's just going to put it in another product moving forward? Make sure you join us on the stream on Friday. I am freezing. I don't know if you've noticed. I've been trying to walk around. It's absolutely cold out here. Hopefully you're avoiding some of the winter storms coming up over the next couple weeks. But remember, be kind to the people around you. If you're around family this week, I know it can be hard, but take a step back and find some ways to be kind to the people around you. Hopefully you have yourself a fantastic day. We'll see you again next video, and join us on Friday.